As I mentioned in my previous video, there are several more unsolved murders in Letcher County, Kentucky. There's some John Doe cases. There's a couple of cases that have been solved, and I did make some videos about a couple of cases out of Letcher County. I have them set aside. I've been meaning to work on them and post them. I think I will finish those up and put them all in a series together. But today I want to get back to the one unsolved murder that I want to talk about. Is that of Michael Lowe of Jenkins, Kentucky. Now, Jenkins, Kentucky is a very small community. It's a small town just outside of Whitesburg, Kentucky. This took place in a apartment complex called the Mountain Breeze Apartment Complex. And anyone familiar with Letcher County knows this is a low-income apartment complex that has somewhat of a reputation. This took place in 2016, and it's still unsolved, and it struck me, this case struck me for some reason. It really stuck out to me. Mike Lowe, age 50, by all accounts, from what I've heard about him, was a genuinely likable, good guy. He was a good-hearted man. He loved his family, and although he did not have any of his own children, he was an adoring uncle, and he doted on his nieces and nephews. He even helped raise one of his nieces after her mother died. After he was honorably discharged from the Navy, he took care of his mother until she passed away. Lowe was stabbed to death. He was 50 years old, and he was stabbed to death inside his apartment at the Mountain Breeze Complex in Jenkins on the morning of October the 4th, 2016. Officials said at the time that robbery did not appear to be a motive, but law enforcement officials close to the investigation point out a series of mistakes at the crime scene. They say someone among the responders stepped in blood and tracked it all around the apartment, and that prescription drugs and cigarettes in an ashtray were not collected at the crime scene. From the Mountain Eagle. Nearly 2 years after Michael Lowe was found brutally murdered in the Burdine community of Jenkins, Kentucky, family members continue the hope that the case will be solved. Lowe had just turned 50 and was found stabbed to death inside his apartment on the morning of October the 4th, 2016. Officials said that robbery did not appear to be a motive. Everyone has their own theories, said Floyd Lowe, who was Michael Lowe's brother. Floyd Lowe is certain that someone at the Mountain Breeze apartment complex knows more about this murder, and they know who was seen around the apartments. People talk. People see people coming and going in and out of these apartments, and they believe that they know something. Someone got hurt that day, he said. You could see that Michael fought for his life. Now, this was something that wasn't mentioned in the other article about Michael Lowe's death, is that he had fought whoever this person was. The fact that cigarettes in the ashtray were not collected, everybody that smokes generally have their own brand of cigarettes that they smoke, with the exception of occasionally picking up a pack. Maybe they're out of your brand and you pick up a cheaper pack or whatever. But most people that smoke have a brand. So if they had cigarette butts in the ashtray that were not his brand, that would mean someone else had been there who was smoking. And it could be even DNA. DNA could have been extracted from these cigarette butts. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that the person who smoked that cigarette was a murderer, but they would have someone that they could talk to. You know, if that person's in CODIS and Michael Lowe's sister, Gladys Bryant, found his body that day. She said she went to check on him. She was supposed to go have dinner with him, and he told her that he was going to cook a meatloaf. He told her he would call when the meatloaf was ready so she could come and eat. But he never called her, so she went to check on him. And this is when she found him dead. Family members believe Michael Lowe had just driven up to his apartment shortly before he was murdered, noting that he left a full pack of cigarettes and a soft drink in the car. Meanwhile, they are waiting for something someone saw that day to come forward. So it sounds like maybe this man came home, pulled into his parking space of his apartment, and maybe he saw someone at his door. Maybe his door was open. Maybe he saw something that made him get out of the car real quickly, leave behind his cigarettes and his pop, and run up to his apartment. And maybe he found someone inside of his apartment. Maybe someone had come into his apartment while he was gone, and they had fought, and he was killed. And so police believe that somebody saw something, heard something, or knows something. His sister, who also lived in the apartments at Mountain Breeze, went to check on him. His door was closed but unlocked, so she entered to see if anything was wrong. This is when she found him, and she ultimately called 911, and then she called the rest of the family. He was a social butterfly, and he loved being around people in general. He was well known, and he was a technical wizard. He loved working on people's computers and cell phones. He had a good sense of humor, and he enjoyed traveling. He liked to drive to Florida and back, and his dream was to own a home of his own in Florida. And these statements make it so hard to believe that someone would enter his apartment and stab him multiple times. The last time his family saw him was on Saturday, October the 1st. He was talking about putting a bar in his home. He was smiling, as always. After a few days passed without anyone hearing from him, his sister, who also lived in this same apartment building, went to check on him. His door was closed, but it was not locked. She knocked, and after he didn't come to the door, she let herself in. This is when she found him, and she called 911. At first, they assumed that maybe he had died from a stroke or a heart attack. They got into their vehicle and drove to his apartment. This was his brother and sister-in-law. When she called to tell them that he was dead, they assumed that it was a heart attack or something natural. So they drove to his apartment, and when they got there, they saw the flashing lights of law enforcement, and they knew something had happened. Law enforcement said there was no sign of a robbery, and they believe whoever murdered Mike knew him, and in fact, he had opened the door for them. His family doesn't know of anyone that had a problem with him, and he hadn't mentioned anyone to them that he was having a problem with. His brother says, I'll say from what I've read and from what I've heard over the years, that these apartments did sometimes attract some unsavory people. His brother says, I've tried to imagine the scenario that happened. Someone who was very selfish took away his brother. If someone came to his apartment and he welcomed them in, why would they have killed him and not taken anything? They believe it's possible that whoever stabbed him may have also cut themselves, so they were waiting for forensics to come back to see if there was any other blood of another person. Now, this person that wrote this article says there was no mention by law enforcement of a struggle, but his family says that was not true, that you could tell that there was a struggle. that he fought off whoever attacked him. He fought back. With his cigarettes and his pop, it sounds like he had run out to the store and back. Or he'd been somewhere and he was coming home. He was drinking a pop. He had his cigarettes. He gets out of his car without picking these items up that you would normally pick up unless you were planning to come right straight back out to your car. And he ran home. He forgot something. He ran back home to get something. But his sister said he was supposed to be cooking dinner and he was going to call her to come by, but he never did. So I don't know if that was the same day. But it sounds like he may have pulled in and saw someone. I don't know if he lived on the first floor, the second floor, but it sounds like maybe somebody was there waiting on him. I believe he came home and someone was there. So he gets out of his car and he goes left his things in the car. And something happened. There was some kind of an argument. There was some kind of a disagreement. This person maybe pulled out a gun or a knife and said, give me your money, or I don't know. But it just sounds like he came upon someone who was waiting for him for some reason. His family seemed to be very close-knit. There's a lot of photographs of them here after he died, gathering together in remembrance of him. It seemed that he was not someone who was isolated. He seemed to be very outgoing. I think he probably helped the wrong person. I think he probably was asked to help in some way that he couldn't. Like maybe someone asked for money and he just refused, or maybe he just didn't have it. And something happened to this man. It's very sad because it seemed like that he was someone who enjoyed life and enjoyed people. After his body was discovered in his apartment and police conducted their investigation, the Letcher County coroner, Perry Fowler, announced him deceased, and his body was sent to the medical examiner's office in Frankfort for autopsy. They said that he died from multiple stab wounds, and the case is still under investigation. And we're coming up on 10 years. I mean, it's 2016 when this occurred. It's 2025 now. And his family's still waiting for answers. The community is still waiting for answers. His family says it's hard to believe that someone doesn't know something. And his brother says it's hard to wrap your mind around. He said that he wouldn't be surprised by the who if it turned out to be someone that he knew or that he knew was friends or a neighbor or someone that was well connected to Mike Lowe, but he would be hard to understand the why, because he was such a good man, such a good person, and as far as the family knew, no one had a problem with him. And it may not even be that the person that came there that day had a problem with him. Something could have happened during a conversation that set someone off. Since this was not considered to be a robbery, it could have just been a disagreement that got out of hand and this person just attacked Mike Lowe and murdered him. But they've gotten away with it for all these years. And hopefully I can come back and, just like with the other cases, I can come back someday and do a follow-up announcing that someone has been arrested and charged with this crime. Just like with the case of Trish Deathridge and her mother, Angela Roberts. With Trish Deathridge, there was this kind of underlying ideology or thoughts in the community that this had something to do with drugs. I got into this video, this story that I started reading about and working on a video yesterday about corruption in Letcher County, going back, and not just Letcher County, but surrounding counties, Harlan County, Bell County, and some other areas in there, going back, and it all involved the drug trade. I don't know if anyone suspected anything like that with this Michael Lowe, but even one of his own family members mentioned that there was a certain element of people known to frequent this apartment building where he lived. And I think that may have been a suspicion. I don't know that Michael Lowe was ever mentioned to have been involved in anything like that. For the most part, his family and people talked about him as being this really good man who would help anybody. But that's not to say that he may not have, had something to do with. Someone may have known that he was getting prescription pain medicine or something like that. They mentioned that there were prescription drugs found in his apartment. You would think that if someone entered his apartment with the intention of stealing pain medicine from him, that they would have taken that. But I don't know. I just want to tell this man's story. It's just another one of these intriguing, unsolved cases that took place in Letcher County. I won't lie. This story was hard for me to wrap up because I didn't feel like I had given it enough. I didn't feel like I'd given this story justice or had put enough information out there. But there was just so little to go on. There were a few stories about him. There's a Justice for Mike Lowe Facebook page. And I did reach out to one of the family members and, let them know that I was planning on making this video. Just like with the Justice for Lois Trent, no one ever, responded or reached back out to me. And so I went forward with my video, but I felt like I really wanted to know more about Mike Lowe as a person, what the family, what their thoughts were, if they had someone in mind, if the police ever questioned anybody, or did they go door to door in this apartment complex? It's a small apartment complex and probably don't have that many tenants. I'm not really sure, but I'm sure if people didn't know each other personally, they probably saw each other as they came and went in the parking lot and such. And Jenkins being such a small community, I just really wanted to learn more about this man and about his story and what the family, how they were leaning towards this. And I really hope that someday I can come back and do a follow-up on this man's story because it was really hard for me, like I said, to wrap this one up. If anyone has any information about the murder of Mike Lowe, they're urged to contact the Kentucky State Police, Post 13 in Hazard at 606-435-6069. Thanks for watching.